Danny Cole wiped the grease from his hands and looked at the power conduit he had just repaired. It was good work. The kind of work that kept orbital station Kepler 7 running smoothly day after day. Nobody noticed when things worked properly. They only noticed when things broke. He had been the station's lead mechanic for 3 years now. The job was not exciting. But Danny liked it. He understood machines. He understood how pieces fit together and how small problems could become big problems if you ignored them. People were harder to understand, but machines made sense. The corridor was busy today. Kepler 7 was a joint station, shared by humans and the Selvari. The Selvari were tall beings with pale blue skin and sharp features. They moved with a grace that made humans look clumsy. They also controlled most of the known galaxy, and they never let humans forget it. Danny began packing his tools into his metal case. He had more repairs to do on the lower decks, and he wanted to finish before his shift ended. His assistant, Ben Harper, was waiting for him in engineering. Ben was young and eager to learn, and Danny enjoyed teaching him. The sound of footsteps made Danny look up. A group of Selvari was walking down the corridor toward him. They wore the flowing robes of diplomats, and at the center of the group walked Ambassador Vorath. Danny knew Vorath by reputation. Everyone on the station did. The ambassador was one of the most powerful Selvari in this sector. He had spent the last week in difficult negotiations with Earth's representatives. From what Danny had heard, the talks were not going well. Vorath wanted Earth to accept stricter trade terms, and the human diplomats were refusing. Danny stepped back against the wall to let the group pass. His tool case was still on the floor, partially blocking the corridor. He bent down quickly to move it out of the way. "Excuse me," Danny said politely. "Just need 1 second to clear the path." He reached for the case, but a shadow fell over him. He looked up to see Ambassador Vorath, standing directly above him, staring down with cold eyes. "You dare to speak to me?" Vorath said. Danny blinked in confusion. "I was just moving my equipment, sir. I apologize for the delay." "You apologize," Vorath repeated. His voice was filled with disgust. A human maintenance worker speaks directly to a Selvari ambassador and thinks an apology is enough. The other Selvari in the group exchanged glances but said nothing. Humans and aliens who were walking through the corridor stopped and watched. Nobody moved to help. Danny stood up slowly. He was not a tall man, but he met Vorath's gaze without looking away. "I meant no disrespect, Ambassador. I was simply doing my job." "Your job," Vorath said. "Your job is to serve. Your job is to be invisible. Your species exists because we allow it. You should remember your place." Danny felt anger rising in his chest, but he pushed it down. He had dealt with difficult people before. Getting angry would only make things worse. "I understand, sir. I will be out of your way in just a moment." He bent down again to grab his tool case. As he did, he heard Vorath snap his fingers. "Give me that," Vorath said to one of his aides. Danny looked up just in time to see Vorath take a cup from the aide's hand. It was a cup of coffee. Steam rose from the dark liquid inside. Before Danny could react, Vorath threw the coffee directly into his face. The pain was immediate and terrible. The liquid was burning hot, and it splashed across Danny's face, neck, and chest. He screamed and stumbled backward, dropping his tool case. His hands flew to his face as the burning spread across his skin. "Perhaps that will teach you to stay silent in the presence of your betters," Vorath said calmly. He stepped over Danny's fallen body and continued walking down the corridor. His entourage followed without a word. Danny lay on the floor, gasping in pain. His eyes were squeezed shut, and he could feel his skin blistering. The coffee had been fresh from the machine. It must have been nearly boiling. "Danny!" A voice called out. Footsteps rushed toward him. Through his pain, Danny recognized the voice. It was Ben Harper. "Oh God," Ben said, kneeling beside him. "Someone call medical. We need help here." Danny tried to open his eyes, but the pain was too much. Everything was blurred and burning. He could hear other voices now. Humans and aliens both. But nobody had stopped Vorath. Nobody had said anything. Just breathe, Ben said. Help is coming. Just breathe. Danny did his best to follow the instruction. He focused on taking slow breaths while the burning continued. He had been hurt before on the job. Cuts and bruises were normal for a mechanic. But this was different. This was not an accident. This was intentional cruelty. Medical staff arrived within minutes. They placed Danny on a stretcher and rushed him to the station's medical bay. The doctors worked quickly, applying burn cream and bandages to his face and neck. They gave him medicine for the pain, and slowly the burning faded to a dull ache. "You are lucky," one of the doctors said. "The burns are serious, but they did not reach your eyes. You will heal, though there may be some scarring." Danny lay on the medical bed and stared at the ceiling. Lucky. The doctor had called him lucky. The door to the medical bay opened, and Chief Lisa Grant walked in. She was the station's human administrator. A woman in her 50s with gray hair and tired eyes. She looked at Danny's bandaged face, and her expression shifted from concern to barely controlled fury. "I heard what happened," she said. "I am going to file a formal complaint with Selvari High Command." Danny turned his head to look at her. Speaking hurt, but he forced the words out. "It will not matter. He has diplomatic immunity." "I do not care," Lisa said. "What he did was assault. It was witnessed by dozens of people. He cannot get away with this." But even as she said the words, Danny could see the doubt in her eyes. They both knew how the galaxy worked. The Selvari held the power. Humans were tolerated guests, at best. An ambassador like Vorath could do whatever he wanted to a human mechanic, and nothing would happen to him. Ben Harper stood in the corner of the room, his face pale. "This is not right," he said quietly. "Someone has to do something." Danny closed his eyes. The pain medicine was making him drowsy, and he did not have the energy to argue. He knew the truth. Nobody would do anything. Vorath would continue his important work, and Danny would heal and go back to fixing machines. That was how the galaxy worked. But as Danny drifted toward sleep, he thought about the reactor core deep in the station's belly. He thought about the complex hybrid system that combined human and Selvari technology. He thought about the dozen small adjustments he made every day to keep it running smoothly. He wondered if anyone else on the station truly understood how delicate that system was. He wondered if they would learn. The news of the attack spread through orbital station Kepler 7 within hours. Humans whispered about it in the cafeteria and in the work areas. Some were angry, others were afraid. Most were both. Chief Lisa Grant spent the entire next day fighting a battle she knew she could not win. She filed her complaint with Selvari High Command. She attached statements from witnesses. She included medical reports showing the extent of Danny's burns. She did everything by the rules. The response came back in less than 6 hours. Ambassador Vorath was a valued member of the Selvari diplomatic corps. The incident was regrettable but did not warrant formal action. The human worker had blocked a public corridor and had spoken to the ambassador without permission. While the ambassador's response was perhaps excessive, it was within his rights to correct inappropriate behavior from lower species. Lisa read the response 3 times. Each time, she felt the anger grow stronger. Lower species. That was how they saw humanity. Not as partners, not as allies, as something less. She walked to the medical bay to tell Danny the news. She found him sitting up in bed, his face and neck wrapped in white bandages. Ben Harper sat in a chair nearby, looking exhausted. "I am guessing it is bad news," Danny said when he saw her face. Lisa nodded. "They rejected the complaint. Vorath will face no punishment." Danny did not seem surprised. "I expected that. This is wrong," Ben said. He stood up from his chair, his hands balled into fists. "He burned you. He did it on purpose. Everyone saw it. How can they just ignore that?" "Because they can," Danny said simply. "Because we are humans, and they are Selvari, and that is how things work." Lisa sat down heavily in the chair Ben had left. "I am sorry, Danny. I tried everything I could." "I know you did, Chief. It is not your fault." They sat in silence for a moment. The medical bay was quiet except for the soft hum of machines. Danny looked down at his bandaged hands. The doctors had treated the burns on his palms and fingers as well. He would not be able to work for at least a week. "There is something else," Lisa said slowly. "Something I need to ask you about." Danny looked up. "The reactor." Lisa nodded. "The reactor calibration is scheduled for tomorrow. Normally you would handle it. But with your injuries. You are logistics. 2 RO. You are injuries. Ben can do it," Danny said. He looked at his young assistant. "I have been training him for months. He knows the procedures." Ben's face went pale. "Danny, I have only watched you do it. I have never done it alone. You will be fine. I wrote down all the steps. Follow the checklist, and you will be fine." But even as Danny said the words, he felt a knot of worry in his stomach. The reactor was not a simple machine. It was a hybrid system, half human design and half Selvari technology. The two parts did not always work well together. Danny had spent years learning its quirks and moods. He knew when the readings were slightly off. He knew when the system needed a small adjustment that was not in any manual. He had never written down those instincts. They were too hard to explain. You either felt them, or you did not. "I will try my best," Ben said, though he did not sound confident. The door to the medical bay opened, and a new figure walked in. She was Selvari. Tall, and wearing a military uniform instead of diplomatic robes. Commander Taeln was in charge of the station's defense forces. Unlike the diplomats, she had actually spent time working alongside humans. She did not treat them as servants. Lisa stood up quickly. "Commander, what brings you here?" Taeln walked to Danny's bed and looked down at his bandaged face. Her expression was hard to read. Selvari faces did not show emotion the same way human faces did. "I came to see the mechanic," Taeln said. "I heard what Vorath did." Danny met her gaze. "Are you here to tell me it was my fault too?" "No." Taeln's voice was flat. "I am here because I wanted you to know that not all Selvari approve of what happened. Vorath is a fool. He believes his position makes him untouchable." "It seems like it does," Danny said. Taeln was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was lower. "I have seen many powerful people in my years of service. I have learned something about them. The ones who believe they cannot fall are always the ones who fall the hardest. Karma has a way of finding people. Even people like Vorath." Danny was not sure what to say to that. Was it a threat, a warning, or just an observation? "How long until you can return to work?" Taeln asked. "The doctors say a week. Maybe more. For my hands to fully heal." 4. "And the reactor calibration?" "Tomorrow. Ben will handle it." Taeln looked at Ben, then back at Danny. Something flickered in her eyes. Concern. Maybe. Or doubt. "The reactor is a complex system. Are you certain he is ready?" Danny hesitated. The honest answer was no. Ben was smart and hard-working, but he lacked experience. He lacked the instinct that came from years of working with the machine. "He has my notes," Danny said. "He will follow the procedures exactly. It should be fine." Taeln nodded slowly. "I hope you are right. That reactor powers the entire station. If something goes wrong with it," she did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. After Taeln left, Danny lay back on his bed and stared at the ceiling. His burns ached beneath the bandages. His pride ached even more. He thought about Vorath walking away without a care in the world. He thought about the message from Selvari High Command calling humans a lower species. He also thought about the reactor. He thought about all the small things he did every day that were not in any manual. The way he adjusted the coolant flow when the temperature readings rose too quickly. The way he listened to the hum of the power core and knew when something was slightly off. He had tried to teach these things to Ben, but some knowledge could not be taught. It had to be earned through time and experience. "Danny," Ben said quietly. "Are you worried?" Danny turned his head to look at his assistant. Ben's face was young and scared. He was only 23 years old, too young to carry this burden. "The procedures are solid," Danny said. Just follow them step by step. Do not rush. Do not skip anything. If something feels wrong, stop and call for help. What if I miss something? Danny wanted to say that everything would be fine. He wanted to say that the reactor was stable and that nothing bad could happen. But he was not a liar. If you miss something, Danny said, we will deal with it together. I will be on the other end of the radio the whole time. You will not be alone. Ben nodded, though he still looked afraid. Danny closed his eyes and tried to rest. Tomorrow would be a long day. He would guide Ben through the calibration from his hospital bed. He would talk him through every step. It would be fine. It had to be fine. But deep in his gut, Danny felt the worry growing. Something bad was coming. He could feel it the same way he felt when the reactor was about to have problems. He just hoped he was wrong. The reactor room was deep in the belly of orbital station Kepler-7. It was a massive chamber filled with pipes and control panels, and the constant hum of power flowing through the system. Ben Harper stood in the center of it all, feeling very small and very alone. He held Danny's checklist in his shaking hands. The paper was worn from use, covered in Danny's neat handwriting. Every step was written down clearly. All Ben had to do was follow them one by one. His radio crackled. Ben, are you in position? Danny's voice sounded tired and rough from the medical bay. Yes, Ben said. I am starting now. Good. Take your time. Read each step twice before you do anything. Ben nodded even though Danny could not see him. He looked at the first step on the checklist. Check coolant pressure levels. Display should show between 4.2 and 4.8. He walked to the main control panel and found the coolant display. The number read 4.5. Right in the middle of the safe range. Coolant is at 4.5, Ben reported. Perfect. Move to step 2. Ben worked through the checklist slowly and carefully. He checked power output levels. He verified temperature readings across 6 different sensors. He tested the backup systems to make sure they were ready. Everything seemed normal. After an hour, he reached the main calibration step. This was the part that made him nervous. He had to manually adjust the balance between the human power systems and the Selvari energy cores. If the balance was wrong, the two systems would fight each other instead of working together. I am at step 12, Ben said into the radio. Starting the calibration sequence. Okay, Danny said. This is the tricky part. Watch the fluctuation meter on your left. If it goes above 7, stop immediately. Ben found the fluctuation meter. It currently showed 2.3, well within the safe range. He began entering the calibration commands into the control panel. The numbers on the screens began to shift. Power levels rose and fell as the system adjusted itself. Ben watched the fluctuation meter carefully. It climbed from 2.3 to 3.1 to 4.6. Fluctuation at 4.6, Ben reported. That is normal. Keep going. Ben entered the next command. The fluctuation meter jumped to 5.8. 5.8 now, Ben said. His voice was higher than before. There was a pause on the radio. That is a little high but still okay. Watch it closely. Ben entered the final calibration command. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the fluctuation meter began to climb rapidly. 6.2, 6.7, 7.1. It is above 7, Ben said quickly. Danny, it is above 7. Abort the calibration. Hit the red button on your right. Ben slammed his hand on the red abort button. The screens flashed, and the calibration sequence stopped. But the fluctuation meter did not go down. It kept climbing. 7.4, 7.9, 8.3. It is not stopping, Ben said. Panic was creeping into his voice. Danny, the numbers are still going up. What? Danny's voice was sharp. That should not be possible. The abort should have reset everything. Ben stared at the fluctuation meter in horror. 8.7, 9.2, 9.8. The numbers climbed higher and higher. Warning lights began flashing across the control panels. Something is wrong, Ben said. Something is really wrong. In the medical bay, Danny tried to sit up. Pain shot through his burned face and hands, but he ignored it. His mind was racing. The abort should have stopped the calibration. The fact that it did not meant something else was happening, something he had never seen before. Ben, listen to me, Danny said. Go to the secondary panel on the east wall. There is a manual override there. Okay. Ben ran across the reactor room. He found the secondary panel and opened it. Inside was a mess of switches and dials that he did not recognize. I found it. What do I do? There should be a blue switch in the upper left corner. Flip it down. Ben found the switch and flipped it. Nothing happened. The warning lights kept flashing. An alarm began to sound. A loud wailing noise that echoed through the chamber. It did not work, Ben shouted over the alarm. Danny, what do I do? Danny's heart was pounding. He knew the reactor better than anyone on the station. He knew its moods and its quirks. But this was something new. This was the hybrid system failing in a way it had never failed before. He tried to think. What had he missed? What small adjustment had he made in the past that he had never told Ben about? And then he remembered. 3 months ago, he had noticed a small problem with the energy coupling between the human and Selvari systems. It was a tiny issue, barely noticeable. He had fixed it by adjusting a secondary regulator every few days. He had meant to document the fix, but he had forgotten. It had become so automatic that he did it without thinking. Without that adjustment, the coupling would eventually fail, and when it failed during a calibration sequence, Ben, Danny said urgently, there is a regulator on the north wall. A small gray box with a dial on the front. Do you see it? Ben spun around, searching. I see it. Gray box, north wall, turn the dial to the left. Slowly. Just a quarter turn. Ben grabbed the dial and turned it. For a moment, the alarm got louder. Then, slowly, the numbers on the fluctuation meter began to drop. 9.4. 8.9. 8.2. It is working, Ben said with relief. The numbers are going down. But before Danny could respond, a new alarm sounded. This one was different. Deeper. More urgent. What is that? Ben asked. Danny felt his blood turn cold. He knew that alarm. Everyone on the station knew that alarm. It was the fire alarm. Get out of there, Danny shouted. Get out now. Ben ran for the door. Behind him, the reactor let out a terrible groaning sound. The fluctuation meter, which had been falling, suddenly spiked again. 10.5. 12. 15.7. The power surge hit the reactor's cooling system like a bomb. Pipes burst. Sparks flew. And then, in a flash of light and heat, the lower section of the reactor room exploded. The blast threw Ben through the doorway and into the corridor. He hit the wall hard and fell to the floor. His ears were ringing, and smoke was filling the air. Behind him, through the door, he could see flames. The fire spread quickly, too quickly. The station's emergency systems tried to contain it, but the power surge had damaged the fire suppression systems. Sprinklers failed to activate. Containment doors refused to close. Within minutes, the fire had spread to 3 decks. Alarms screamed throughout orbital station Kepler 7. Emergency lights flashed red. People ran through corridors, trying to reach escape pods and safe zones. In the station's command center, Chief Lisa Grant stared at the damage reports in horror. How did this happen? Commander Talon stood beside her, her face grim. The reactor. Something went wrong with the calibration. Can we stop the fire? Talon shook her head. The suppression systems are offline. We need to vent the affected sections to space, but there are still people trapped inside. Lisa turned to her communication officer. Where is Ben Harper? He made it out of the reactor room. He is injured but alive. And Danny Cole? Still in the medical bay. Lisa looked at the spreading red zones on the station map. The fire was moving toward the living quarters, toward the Diplomat's wing, toward thousands of lives. Get me Danny Cole on the radio, she said. Now. Danny was already out of his medical bed when the call came through. The alarms had told him everything he needed to know. The station was burning, and it was burning because of something he had failed to document. His bandaged hands shook as he reached for his clothes. Every movement hurt. His face felt like it was on fire all over again. But he did not have time for pain. "Danny, this is Chief Grant. We need you in engineering. Can you walk?" "I can walk," Danny said. He pulled on his work boots, wincing as his burned fingers touched the laces. "What is the status?" "The fire has spread to decks 7 through 9. Suppression systems are offline. We have people trapped in multiple sections. And the reactor? Unstable. Ben managed to slow the failure, but it is still building toward a full cascade. If we do not stabilize it in the next 30 minutes, we will have to abandon the station." Danny moved toward the medical bay door. A nurse tried to stop him, saying he was not cleared to leave. He pushed past her without a word. The corridor outside was chaos. People were running in every direction. Smoke drifted through the air, making it hard to see. Emergency lights flashed red, casting everything in a bloody glow. Danny made his way toward engineering. His body screamed at him to stop, to rest, to lie down and let someone else handle this. But there was no one else. He was the only person on the station who truly understood the reactor. He found Ben sitting against a wall near the engineering section. The young man's face was covered in soot, and he had a cut on his forehead that was bleeding badly. "Danny," Ben said when he saw him. "I am sorry. I followed the checklist. I did everything right. But it still went wrong." Danny knelt beside his assistant. "It was not your fault. There was something I forgot to tell you. A fix I had been doing for months without writing it down. This is on me. Can you stop it?" Danny looked toward the engineering section. Through the doorway, he could see the control panels flickering with warning lights. The reactor was dying, and when it died, it would take the station with it. "I can try," Danny said. "Help me up." Ben got to his feet and supported Danny as they entered the engineering section. The heat was intense, and smoke made it hard to breathe. Danny found a pair of work gloves and pulled them over his bandaged hands. The pressure hurt, but he needed to be able to use the controls. "Talk me through what you see," Danny said to Ben. "My vision is still blurry from the burns." Ben read out the numbers on the screens. Power levels, temperature readings, fluctuation rates. All of them were in the red zone. Danny closed his eyes and listened. Beneath the alarms and the chaos, he could hear the reactor. It had a sound, a rhythm, like a heartbeat. Right now, that heartbeat was weak and irregular. "Okay," Danny said. "Here is what we are going to do." He began calling out instructions. "Adjust this valve. Reroute power through that conduit. Bypass the damaged systems and connect directly to the backup grid." Ben moved quickly, following every command without question. It was delicate work. One wrong move would make everything worse. But Danny knew this machine. He had spent years learning its secrets. Even half-blind and in terrible pain, he could feel what it needed. Minutes passed. The numbers on the screen slowly began to improve. The reactor's heartbeat grew stronger. "I think it is working," Ben said. "The fluctuation rate is dropping." Danny did not celebrate. They were not done yet. "We need to lock in the new settings. Go to the main panel and enter the stabilization code. It is 77429. Ben ran to the panel and entered the code. The screens flashed, and then the warning lights began to turn off one by one. The reactor let out a low hum, a sound Danny recognized as normal operation. "It is stable," Ben said. He let out a laugh of pure relief. "Danny, you did it." But Danny was not listening. His radio had crackled to life, and Commander Tailn's voice came through. "Engineering, this is command. The reactor is showing stable readings. Well done. But we have another problem." Danny pressed the radio to his ear. "What is it?" "The fire has spread to the diplomatic wing. The containment doors have sealed, but we cannot open them remotely. There are 12 people trapped inside, including Ambassador Vorath. If we do not get those doors open, they will burn to death." Danny felt something cold settle in his stomach. Vorath. The man who had thrown hot coffee in his face. The man who had called humans a lower species. The man who had faced no punishment for his cruelty. Now that man was trapped in a burning room, and the only way to save him was to open the doors manually. From inside the fire zone, "Can anyone else do it?" Danny asked. "No. The manual override panels require knowledge of human engineering systems. The Selvery cannot operate them. And all other human engineers are either injured or trapped themselves. You are the only one." Danny looked at his bandaged hands. He looked at Ben, whose face was pale with exhaustion. He thought about everything Vorath had done to him. It would be easy to say no. It would be easy to say he was too injured, too tired, too hurt. Nobody would blame him. The man who had burned him was now facing fire himself. Some would call it justice. But Danny Cole was not the kind of man who let people die, even people who had wronged him. "Tell me where the override panel is," Danny said. Ben grabbed his arm. "Danny, you cannot. The fire is spreading. The smoke alone could kill you." "I know. Then why? After what he did to you, why would you risk your life for him?" Danny was quiet for a moment. He thought about the question. He thought about hatred and revenge, and the sweet taste of letting an enemy suffer. Then he thought about the 11 other people in that room. Aides and servants who had done nothing wrong. People who would die because they were in the same place as a cruel man. "Because it is the right thing to do," Danny said. "Because I will not become the kind of person who lets others burn, no matter what they did to me." He grabbed a portable oxygen mask from the emergency kit and strapped it to his face. The mask pressed against his bandaged skin, and the pain was terrible. But he forced himself to move. "Ben, stay here and monitor the reactor. If anything changes, call me." "Danny, please." Ben's voice cracked. Danny put a hand on his assistant's shoulder. "I will be back. I promise." Then he turned and walked toward the fire. The corridor leading to the diplomatic wing was thick with smoke. Emergency lights flickered weakly, barely cutting through the darkness. The heat grew worse with every step Danny took. He could hear the fire now. It roared like a living thing, hungry and endless. He could see the glow of flames ahead, orange and red dancing against the walls. The override panel was 50 meters away, 50 meters through smoke and heat and fire. Danny Cole took a deep breath through his oxygen mask and kept walking. The heat was like a wall. Danny pushed through it, his body screaming for him to turn back. Sweat ran down his face beneath the oxygen mask, stinging his burns. Every breath felt like fire in his lungs. The smoke was so thick that he could barely see his own hands in front of him. He moved along the wall, feeling his way forward. The metal was hot beneath his gloves, but not hot enough to burn through. Not yet. He counted his steps. 20 meters, 30 meters, 40 meters. The override panel should be just ahead. Danny squinted through the smoke, looking for the distinctive shape of the control box. For a terrible moment, he thought he had gone the wrong way. Then he saw it, a gray metal box mounted on the wall, surrounded by flickering flames. He rushed forward and pressed his body against the wall beside the panel. The fire was close now, just meters away. He could feel it reaching for him, trying to pull him into its embrace. His burned hands fumbled with the panel cover. The pain was incredible, like knives being driven through his fingers, but he forced himself to keep working. The cover came off, revealing the override controls inside. The system was simple in theory. 3 switches needed to be flipped in sequence, then a code entered on the keypad. Danny had done it 100 times during drills, but he had never done it while his hands were burned and his vision was blurred and fire was creeping closer by the second. He flipped the first switch, then the second, then the third. The keypad lit up. Danny entered the code. 3318. Nothing happened. He tried again. 3318. Still nothing. Panic began to rise in his chest. Had the fire damaged the system? Was it too late? Then he realized his mistake. His blurred vision had made him hit the wrong keys. He focused as hard as he could, and entered the code one more time, pressing each button with careful precision. 3318. A loud clang echoed through the corridor. Somewhere ahead, the containment doors were opening. Through his radio, Danny heard voices, shouting, crying, the sound of running feet. The trapped people were escaping, but Danny could not move. The effort of reaching the panel had used the last of his strength. His legs gave out, and he slumped against the wall. The oxygen mask was running low, and each breath brought less air than the last. He closed his eyes. At least he had done it. Hands grabbed him, strong hands, pulling him up from the floor. "I have him," a voice said. It was Commander Taeln. "Get the medical team ready." Danny tried to speak, but no words came out. He felt himself being lifted, carried through the smoke and heat. The world faded in and out around him. The next thing he knew, he was lying on a stretcher in a clean, cool corridor. Medical staff surrounded him, attaching monitors and injecting medicine into his arm. The oxygen mask had been replaced with a proper breathing apparatus, and fresh air filled his lungs. "You are going to be okay," someone said. "Just rest." Danny wanted to rest. He wanted nothing more than to close his eyes and let sleep take him. But there was something he needed to know first. "The people," he whispered. "The trapped people. Did they all make it?" A face appeared above him. Chief Lisa Grant, her eyes red from smoke and tears. "They all made it," she said. "Every single one. Because of you." Danny let out a breath he did not know he had been holding. Then he closed his eyes and let the darkness take him. He woke up 3 days later, in a hospital bed on a rescue ship. The station had been evacuated, and emergency crews were working to repair the damage. Early reports said that Kepler-7 would survive, though it would take months to restore full operations. Ben Harper was the first to visit him. The young man's forehead was bandaged where he had been cut, but otherwise he looked healthy. "You are awake," Ben said with a grin. "The doctors were not sure when you would wake up. You breathed in a lot of smoke." "I will live," Danny said. His voice was rough, and speaking hurt. "What happened after I passed out?" Commander Taeln carried you out of the fire zone. She went in after you when you did not answer your radio. The Selvari are calling her a hero." Danny nodded slowly. Taeln had risked her life to save him. That meant something. "And Voreth?" Danny asked. Ben's expression hardened. "He survived. He was one of the first out of the diplomatic wing after you opened the doors. He did not even stop to say thank you." Danny was not surprised. Men like Voreth did not thank people like him. They took what they needed and moved on without looking back. But then Ben smiled. "There is more, though." Selvari High Command was not happy about what happened. The reactor failure, the fire, the near loss of the entire station. They investigated and found out that the problem started right after your injury. They also found out that the only reason the station did not explode was because you fixed the reactor while you were still burned and half blind. So they asked questions. They wanted to know why the station's best engineer was lying in a hospital bed instead of doing his job. And when they found out about the coffee incident, they were furious. Not because they cared about you, but because Voreth's arrogance almost cost them an entire station. Danny waited. "Voreth has been recalled," Ben said. "His diplomatic status has been revoked. His career is over. No public apology, of course. They would never admit fault to a human. But everyone knows what really happened." Danny lay back against his pillow and stared at the ceiling. He did not feel joy at Voreth's downfall. He did not feel satisfaction or triumph. He just felt tired. "There is one more thing," Ben said. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small metal badge. "Commander Taeln asked me to give you this. She said it is a Selvari honor mark. It means Warrior of Fire. She said you earned it." Danny took the badge and looked at it. It was simple, just a piece of polished metal with a flame symbol etched into the surface. But it meant something. It meant that at least one Selvari recognized what he had done. "Tell her thank you," Danny said. Over the following weeks, Danny recovered slowly. His burns healed, though they left scars on his face and hands. The doctors said the scars would fade with time, but they would never fully disappear. He did not mind. The scars were a reminder of what he had survived and what he had chosen to do. When he was finally cleared to return to duty, he went back to orbital station Kepler-7. The repairs were still ongoing, but the core systems were operational. The reactor hummed quietly in its chamber, healthy and stable. On his first day back, a young Selvari engineer approached him in the corridor. The Selvari was nervous, his eyes darting around as if he expected to be told to leave. "Excuse me," the Selvari said. "You are Danny Cole, yes? The human who fixed the reactor and saved the diplomatic wing?" Danny nodded. "That is me. I am Korvath. I am new to the station. I am supposed to be learning the hybrid systems, but the manuals do not explain everything. I was wondering if you might teach me, if you have time." Danny looked at the young Selvari. He thought about Vorath and his cruelty. He thought about the centuries of humans being treated as lesser beings. He thought about all the reasons he could say no. Then he thought about Talon carrying him out of the fire. He thought about the honor badge in his pocket. He thought about the future and what it might hold if humans and Selvari could learn to truly work together. "I have time," Danny said. "Come with me. We will start with the basics." Korvath's face lit up with surprise and gratitude. "Thank you. I will work hard. I promise." Danny smiled, the expression pulling at the new scars on his face. "I know you will." They walked together toward the reactor room, human and Selvari side by side. Behind them, through the station's windows, stars burned bright and endless in the darkness of space. Perhaps the galaxy would never fully accept humanity as equals. Perhaps there would always be those who saw humans as lesser beings, useful only for labor and easily discarded. But Danny Cole had learned something important during the fire. He had learned that true worth was not measured by how others treated you. It was measured by how you chose to act when everything was burning down around you. Humanity was not the strongest species in the galaxy. It was not the most advanced or the most powerful, but it was, perhaps, the most willing to rise above cruelty with grace. And that, Danny thought, was worth more than all the power in the universe.